We are currently recording this session, so if you would like to refer back to it at another time, or if you have some that couldn't attend and you think they would find it useful, we'll post those to NHA's website. If you are on the phone, please make sure your line is muted just to decrease that background noise, makes it hard to hear. Please put your name and anybody that's joining you in the chat along with your organization. It just helps us better know who attended and keep track of how many people we had with us today. And I think that's all. I'm going to thank again Margaret Drake. She comes with a bio that proves to anyone she's very equipped to do this training. And then another thank you to Miranda Marlin, who is the Director of Quality from Dundee County. She's going to help us kind of navigate through some of the NHSN stuff so that the view you're seeing is really the same as what you would see when you open yours. Margaret's view is a little bit different. So Miranda's willing to kind of be the screen share so that we can see her page and we can walk through some of those processes. Otherwise, I think that's all I have now. I'm going to hand it off to Margaret and we will come back together for questions at the end.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and put PowerPoint up. There's not very many slides here today, just some very basic information for you. When I here move this. Oh, it's not doing it. I wanted it to, there we go. Maybe this will work better. Okay, sorry. So basically, are you seeing the thing up there on my screen?
Yep, we can see your screen. It looks good.
Okay, so you're seeing the PowerPoint, but you're not seeing all this other crap.
Right, I just see your slide and yep.
Okay, because the control bar is showing up. I don't want to go that way. Okay, so start here. Okay, so what I want to let you know is there are a lot of data collection forms and instructions in NHSN, and I put the link up there where you can find this page. And as you can see, like this just happens to be the UTI, but they've got them for, BSIs, they got them for the surgical site, they have them for CDI, so that you can go into these places, fill out the forms. This table of instructions basically tells you what they're asking for in each place, and then the denominator form, so that you could go in and pull your denominators and have them ready to put into NHSN. So this is an example of what the table of instructions would look like for, say, UTI events. So it walks you through keeps moving before I want it to, sorry. It will walk you through exactly what they want, where. When it says patient ID, it's required, and this is what they're looking for, okay? And if it's optional, if it's required, remember anything with a red asterisk in NHSN means it's a required field. You have to put an answer in there. And then this is a copy of just like the urinary tract infection, a UTI, the information that you would be filling out. And again, I put where you can find this form. This link should take you right to that form. And again, remember, I'm just showing you the UTI ones, but BSI, SSI, they all have these forms. And once you're in there, you should be able to see them. Now, this is the calculator. So NHSN has built-in calculators and worksheets where you can actually put your data in and see if it is going to actually meet definitions. to be an infection or not. The one thing I do warn you is that the calculators are only good as the information you put in. So if you put something that's not correct in there, it may mislead you, but it does help you walk through the steps of determining if something is or is not an infection. They're also what they call the HAI checklist. And these again, this is the link where you can find these. And this again is, goes through basically the definition. So this is the checklist, example of the checklist for UTI. So it's telling you, you know, here, my PowerPoint's moving on its own, sorry. Here are the different types of criteria that could be met to be a UTI or a CAUTI, and then it walks you through, you have to have one or two of these. So you can check these boxes if you have it, and it'll walk you down so that you know what kind of event you have. I think there may be 4 total pages to this, but again, if you go to this link, you'll find checklists. This again, I'm just showing you the UTI one, but they all basically have one for each one. And once we go in, I'm going to stop sharing now and let let's pull up the actual NHSN database.
Miranda, are you able to share? Okay. Oh, yep. Here you go.
Oh,
There
okay.
you go. Perfect. Thanks.
At this point, Miranda has gone in, she signed in through her SAMS portal with her grid card, used her grid card, or, you know, email, password, and her grid card to get to this point. So once you're here, of course, you go to NHSN reporting. And then you pick, your place should show up there. If you have more than one component that you're registered for, it'll be here, and then you would click on patient safety is where you're going to do your HAI reporting. If you are a user for more than one facility, it's going to also show up here, and then you would click on the one you want to go in to do the reporting with. Okay, and then you would submit once you have those filled out. And then you come to the what they call the NHSN landing page or home page. So as you can see, it's saying that she has an alert there that she's missing 4 summary items, and then your left-hand navigation bar. So if we click on what's the missing summary items, it takes us right into what she's missing. So at this point, she could click on that add summary. So her device, do the DA inpatient. So that's telling her that she's missing the summary for April for her devices and her inpatient unit, okay? So then at this point, she can go in and fill in those total patient days, which would be this, in other words, the census. So how many, what's the census for April? And remember, a census is, you may have one patient, but maybe they've been here 3 days for that month, and another patient who came in and they were there 4 days, and you're totaling those. That's also what the denominator form is that I showed you earlier back on the PowerPoint. It helps you keep track of those. So remember, patient days is different than encounters. Patient days is not just the number of patients you've had, but the total number of days each one has been in your facility for the month totaled together, okay? And then central line days, again, that's going to be the number of central lines, and you do want to put a 0 if you have no central lines for the month. And again, then catheter days is the same thing. It would be the number of catheters that you have in your patients for that month. And to get those days, remember, it is, if the patient, if you pick a time of day that you're going to count, that's convenient for you to count. So if a patient's, what they say, head in bed at 2 p.m., and that's when you're going to count your device days, if they have a catheter in at 2 p.m. when you're counting, they're going to count as a catheter day for that day. And even if it gets taken out 5 minutes later, it that gets counted because it's in there at 2 p.m. Or if they take it out at 1:55 and you're counting at 2 p.m., then technically it would not be in there at 2 p.m. So it does not get counted as a catheter day for that day. Now, some people can do this electronically. They just need to make sure that however they're getting it, that it is set up to count right for them that way. And I will say the NHSN always tells you to do do manual and to do electronic for a while, do both, and they have to agree within 5% before you go to all electronic counting. And then you also see to the side, once you put those numbers in, you're able to click the boxes that say no events. If you don't have any events you haven't had any CAUTI infections or central line infections. And if you're working on, like, this is April, so here she's marked CAUTIs, no CAUTIs, right? So if and you see it grayed out because she put 0 central line days in. So it's not going to let her mark that because it already knows if I don't have any central line days, I can't have any collapses. But the thing I want to point out about CAUTI, since she said she had 1 catheter day, she has to either mark that box or put an event in. Now she's looking at her numbers in May and she's already marked that she didn't have a CAUTI for April, but she finds one. All she has to do is go into the events over there. Let's go to event, add, and put in her CAUTI event, and it will automatically uncheck that box for you. So don't ever be afraid to check the box and then find something later and think, oh no, I already checked that box. It's okay, it's gonna uncheck. It will let you put the event in. It's better to do that sometimes than to not, because you're gonna have a bunch of alerts if you don't. So here is the screen for entering an event. As you see, there's the red asterisks I was talking about. So I'm just gonna have Miranda go in and just put some false things in there so you can just sort of see how you walk through it. Last name and first name are not a required field. I always put them in because that's usually how I could easily find my patient if I had to go find somebody later, as opposed to this ID. The ID number, you see how it's bringing up, I could not find patient. If you always use the same number for that patient, so I always use the medical record number because it did not change for my patients. So if you've ever entered a medical record number for somebody and filled it all out, it will automatically fill in your name and the gender and all of that for you, so you don't have to do the demographic part again. Here it's just saying this medical record number has never been entered, so you just say, okay, I know that. And then you can go ahead and fill in what you want to do. So you could put in the first and last name. I recommend you do that so that, like I said, it's easier sometimes to find people that way. Of course, their gender, you have to put their date of birth. You can either use those tables, or one thing I want to tell you, because is that NHSN automatically puts a lot of slashes in for you. So it's all based on like a 2-digit. So it's a 2-digit month, the day of the month has to be 2. And once you put that in, it automatically puts that slash in there for you. And then you would put the year, and the year is 4, the 4 numbers, okay? The rest of that is optional. You can put it in if you would like. Then the event type. So this is what you're going to try to report. So if I'm trying to report a CAUTI, I need to use the urinary tract infection. Okay. And then it will always want this date of event. If you start to feel something else in below that, it's going to come back and tell you I want date of event. Again, date of event is when the first symptom or the culture was collected that meets the definition. Okay, so it's going to be the first day something meets. Then MDR, infection surveillance, for the most part, that probably will be no. Most people don't do that kind of surveillance because that's actually looking for all the different types of MDROs and with each event. So, and then location. So this is, you know, if you've got several locations set up, you're going to pick the location where the event is being attributed to. So if they're in the inpatient ward, when the infection happened, that's what you're going to put. And then date admitted to the facility would be the date they became an inpatient in this case, because we're saying that it's an inpatient. And then urinary catheter, this just wants to know, is it in place? Was it removed? Or they never ever had one. So then you're just reporting a straight UTI and not a CAUTI. So remember the removed, it's either to count as a CAUTI, it's got to be either it was taken out the day of the date of event or the next day, or it's still in place. So whichever one was going to apply is what you're going to put in there. And then it says where was it inserted and the date of insertion. Again, those are optional. They're good. They are things maybe later when you're trying to drill down on something. So say like if she marked ED, the patient came in, they got a catheter put in the ED. If you start seeing you're having a lot of CAUTIs and the place they were inserted was the ED, it might tell you that you need to go and retrain somebody in ED. What is ED doing? Or do they really know how to put catheters in? And I'm not trying to single anybody out. Okay. Then the specific event, again, it's either going to be an asymptomatic UTI or a symptomatic one. And again, that's based on your definitions of as you have moved down and use those worksheets to help. That'll help lead you to, is this symptomatic or asymptomatic? Symptomatic mostly means, yeah, I've got a culture, I have one other, I have something else that meets criteria, whereas your asymptomatic will not have any of those. And again, you have to read through your definitions to know which one you're talking about, okay? So just go ahead. And then once you do that, you see here you mark, what is the criteria that I use to make this definition? So with a CAUTI or any UTI, you have to have a culture. I mean, you can't meet a UTI without a culture. And you would have to be, you know, one of these things over here, the laboratory positive culture with no more than 2 species. And then generally one of these others, you know, remember with a catheter, urgency and frequency, dysuria do not count. So if you try to mark it, it's going to tell you that it is not a symptom you can use for when a catheter is in place. So then if you get that, I go on mark it, say, well, I do have a fever. So then you can mark fever. So in those 2 is enough to meet criteria. And again, if you don't have enough to meet criteria, it is gonna tell you this doesn't meet the definition and it won't let you enter that as an event. So secondary bloodstream would be you have a culture growing from the blood as well that is growing the same organism, and it has to be within, I believe, 48 hours either side of your UTI. Died, yeah, they want to know, did this person die? And the COVID-19 is, of course, since COVID-19 has happened, they've added that to most of their events. And if they've happened to be discharged, you could fill that out. Now, when you say you have a culture, it automatically, you see it automatically filled in pathogen identified, because that's saying they grew something. So these pathogens have some built-in pathogens. And you see there's page 1 of 238 pathogens down there. You can either try to click through those or just start typing in the name of your organism. So we're saying it's E. coli, so ES for Escherichia coli. And then once you do that, it wants you to put in the drugs from the sensitivity that the lab has done, and whether it was S is sensitive, R resistant, I is intermediate, or not done or not tested. And so everywhere there's a red asterisk, you have to fill something in those boxes. So if you don't see that drug on your lab's report, you just put an N. And then if there was another one you wanted to add, you could do add drug. But if you try to go save that right now, it's going to tell you that you see her error there. It says all results for all required drugs must be entered for this pathogen. So you would say, okay. And then you would go back and try to fill in the rest of those. Just go ahead and put something, mark 1. And if you really don't know it, you put N, that it wasn't done. On that box where it says doxy, unclick that one and click the one of the others. Just I think what I want to show you. Oh, I won't let you unclick it. Okay. Because I wanted to show you that I think you just have to fill one of the 3 in. Okay, so now try saving. Yeah, so the red dot means not so much that you have to put doxycycline in there. It's more one of those 3 drugs. The lab will probably have run one. Okay, so now you have an event that's in there. So this is just, she went to find event. So it was that saying, do you really want to leave? And you could say yes. So then it takes you to the find event, and you can either, if you've got the patient identifiers, like if you're looking for a specific person, you want to know, did I enter this? Or if you want to know, did I enter any events? You could just click on, leave those all blank and click find. And there it shows you that she's entered this UTI. If she'd had more than one event entered in there, it actually would give you a line list of the different people, different events, and you could click on each one separately and look at their information. So I've done this. I come back later and I think, oh, I need to change something. See, there's an edit button down on the bottom. Just click edit. And go up and change whatever you would need to change. Once you've hit edit, you can make your changes. So say, oh, I think this date of event was wrong. I put the wrong date of event. And then go down and you would save it again. Oh, there's no changes have been made till we change the date there. Let's change something else. Change died from yes to no. Or from no to yes, excuse me. Let's see if it recognizes. And then, yeah, if you say they died, did the CAUTI attribute it? Okay, now go save. Now it's waiting. Okay, now you have changed it. So now you've changed your form. You basically have to click edit to change anything, is all I'm trying to tell you. Is there another form or that we want to go through? Janet or Dana?
Would it be valuable to go through a central line form?
We can. So remember, your summary is always where you're entering the line days. And let's see, go to not reporting plan, not patient, summary data, go to summary data. Summary data is where you always add, basically, this is your denominators, okay? So this is going to have to be filled in for every month. So if you think I didn't fill something in, you can go in here and do a find. And then you see that if you click on the summary ID, it takes you to the information you put in. And again, if you need to change your summary information, you can use the edit button and change. I'm not going to have her do this because this is her March data she put in. We don't want to mess that up. And again, see the edit, delete, back. You always want to use the back. And again, when you put your users in, you can give them the rights to edit and enter data, or only to view data, or maybe they can't even edit the data. It just depends on who you, what kind of rights, who you want in there with the data. If you don't want them to change anything, they're not going to be able to change anything. Okay, so then that's our summary, our denominator. An event, again, you go up to event and add. And again, we can put a new event in. Now she puts that same number that you used for that other one. It automatically fills it in for her. So that's why I always like to use the medical record number and not an encounter number, because that, at least where I was at, that did not change for our patients. Their medical record numbers stayed, but encounter numbers would change. So then let's go do an event type. Now, if we're doing blood, BSIs or CLAPSIs, of course, it's a bloodstream infection is what we're talking about. So, of course, that would be the thing we want to put in there. And then again, we have to fill our data event in. And if we're doing the MDR infection surveillance. And I know you're probably doing CLAPSI and MRSA bacteremias, but that is not considered MDRO infection surveillance. So that's the reason that answer is no. Where were they when this bloodstream happened? Again, your date of admission. And then central line, yes or no. Did they have a hemodialysis catheter in? And then if you know where the location of insertion and the date of insertion, you can fill those in. They're not required, but you could fill them in. Okay. And then the answers to these. Okay. So they've added all these new questions. So, do you know any of those? They're automatically, it looks like it automatically goes to no. But if one of those would be yes, you would want to go change it to yes. They've added a lot of things to help with the definition and to eliminate some of that, like, they've been messing with the line type problems. So it's not really a CLAPSI for us. So again, there's a specific event. Laboratory confirmed, of course, means that you have a recognized, I think that's your only choice there. You have a recognized pathogen from one or more blood cultures. Or if you have a common commensal, and there's a list of the common commensals, you have to have 2 blood cultures collected at 2 different times with that same, like staph epi is considered a common commensal. You would have to have one set of blood cultures and another set of blood cultures collected within, I think it's 24 hours of each other, that are both growing staph epi, or they have some, like you can have a staph epi and a coag negative, I think it's coag negative, coag positive, that are basically equal the same thing. And again, there is a chart that tells you what organisms are the same, like staph epi and coag negative. So that's what the common commensal means. And then with any patient, what are the signs or symptoms? Did they have fevers, chill, or hypertension with that? Because you could basically meet your laboratory confirmed bloodstream infection with a positive blood culture that has one of the recognized pathogens. Again, there are lists that say, when you go into your chapters in your patient safety manual and you look at definitions, it will send you, there's links in there that send you to the list of pathogens, to the list of common commensals, okay? And then died is a necessary answer, yes or no. And then again, if you check that box where you said there's a culture, it automatically tells you there's been a pathogen identified. You have to say what it is. You could go ahead and use Staph aureus, SA. And again, it comes up with a list of antibiotics that you have to use. Try doing methicillin. Okay, and then go to the next box and click on one. You know, she's gonna go try to save that. And it's telling her all results are required because she did miss that RIF. So you see the boxes that have more than one antibiotic and has a red star next to that first antibiotic. It's not telling you you need something for all three. It's telling you you need something for at least one of those 3 or 2 antibiotics that are in that box. And that's what I was trying to show you with the UTI. So once you save it, it automatically gives you a new blank event form for whatever event you've added. So say, okay, I added a bloodstream, but now I got to add, you know, my UTI. If you go and just change, you can just, you know, you can start putting your information for your next person in there, and then you can change that. You should be able to change that from bloodstream to safe. Yeah, you can change it to the UTI or the surgical site, whatever your next event's going to be. I mean, I generally did all my CAUTIs, and then I do all my bloodstreams. But you know, whatever way you need to do it or want to do it, what seems logical to you, you can do. But each long as you're on that event form, once you save something, it's gonna keep giving you a blank form. Then when you're done and you're gonna go into something else, you just go over to your left-hand navigation bar and you could go to whatever you need to go to. It's always going to ask you, do you really want to leave this page when you change something on that left-hand navigation bar? So then again, you see we're coming back to alerts because she doesn't have April summaries in there. Okay. Do we want to go just to the NHSN page to see some of those other forms? Or do we want to take questions? I see there's 24 questions in there. Maybe we should start with some questions.
I'm guessing some of them are just people putting their names in, but we have some
Oh,
questions.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
You're doing that. Are there a lot of questions? I don't have the chat up.
So can you go back and show again where to initially go to enter the monthly data? Which tab is that under?
Okay, that would be the summary. You mean like the, yeah, go to summary, go to add. And see this, so then right here, it's asking what type of summary type. I want to put device associated for ICUs or other locations. Okay, if you had neonatal, if you would happen to have a NICU, then it would be neonatal. If you are gonna do the MDROs and CDI, then that's the one you would click on. So these types are always under summary to put your monthly denominator data in, okay? So you can go where, so you put the one you're going to want to enter and you click continue. And then you see your location code. So if you have more than one location, like she has inpatient ED observation in there. So you would pick, where am I reporting this data for, this denominator data? So either you're inpatient or you're outpatient. Your ED, you wouldn't have summary data. Try the ED and see what it tells you. Okay, it's gonna let you do it because usually ED doesn't have this kind of data. See, month cannot be current month or future month, okay. ED is
I don't have my ER in my reporting plan set up though to report. I only like have it set up, but I don't know if that makes a difference.
You know, it's considered in plan and off plan reporting then.
Okay.
You can always report something that's off your plan.
Okay.
What happens with that now, especially for your larger hospitals, NHSN pulls data monthly or not monthly, actually it's quarterly, and sends data over to CMS. So there's a due date where you have to have everything in there for CMS. Because then at that point, that due date after that due date, NHSN goes and sends over the CMS data. So if it's in plan, it's going to get reported. If it's off plan or out of plan, it will not get reported to CMS. But you can always put in off plan information if you would like to. So summary, and you choose what you're going to be reporting. In this case, we're talking about devices today. So you would put your location. So most of the time, you're probably going to have one location, your inpatient location. So here we got the current or past month of April. It's not going to let you put May in because May isn't done. So you go ahead and you put in your, patient days. And then you're going to put in your central lines. Your central line days and your urinary cath days cannot be more than your patient days. It may be able to equal them, but it can't be more. And there you've entered both the central line and the urinary cath. Ventilator days, it always comes up with this whole thing so you can enter it all at one time. It used to be the way it was set up is that you had to go in and enter your central line days. Then you had to go back and you had to come back in here and do the same thing to enter your catheter days. And now they've made it a little bit easier for you that you can just sort of go to this one page, get this all entered. That sample values is if you don't do if you have enough lines, you can do what they call a sampling, so you can count certain days and then come up with there's an equation that says, then we would have these many lines. For the critical access hospitals, that you're never going to have enough of the lines, whether it's catheter or central lines, to qualify to do that kind of reporting. But then you see she's already gone and reported no events for April. So basically she's filled in her data for April. Her total patient days, how many central lines did she have for April? How many central catheter days did she have? And she had no events. And then she can save that, and she's actually done for her reporting for April. Now, say she did that and she realizes that she put something in wrong. She could always go to edit and change what she needs to change. But she cannot change it until she's done edit. And it'll save it. So here now she says, oh, I didn't have any catheter days, say save. And as you see, it also had grayed out the Caudy box when she put 0 in there, because you can't have an event if you don't have any urinary catheter days. And I don't know if that's your true data or not. So, if it's not, go ahead. Yeah, see, you can just delete it all out. So now she would still have the alert there because she deleted it. Okay, is there something else we need to go back to?
So the next question is, on the UTI definition forms, it mentions on the top that criteria states patient must meet 1, 2, and 3. So for clarification, something in all 3 needs to have been met before it's considered a UTI, or
Yes.
2 of the 3.
If it says and 1 and 2 and 3, then it means you have to meet something on each one, okay? If it says something like 1 or 2, then it would just be 1 or the other. We have any other questions?
Anybody have questions they want to ask on the call or put more in the chat? I'm trying to look. I don't see any other right now. Anybody have questions? Other things they want to review?
One thing I want to always remind you is you're not going to break the system if you put something in and it's not right. So you can always put it in, and it's going to tell you if it's not meeting criteria. It's going to tell you that I don't like this data, and it's not going to let you save it. Sometimes that gets frustrating if you think that you absolutely know you've done it right. And I have run into that where I know they've done it right too, and it keeps telling you that. Then you email NHSN at cdc.gov and you say, why is it doing this? And 9 times out of 10, the system's got a bug in it, and they will have to fix it if it's doing that. So sometimes they do updates. They should, updates, and they should be pushing emails out to you if they've done an update that maybe now something's been changed. Okay. You can always go back and report. I see this. We haven't been able to report for March or April. Again, remember that by March, everybody has to have an annual survey done. So it will not, the system will actually not let you put a reporting plan in if you have not filled out your annual survey, newest annual survey by March. And always remember your survey is for the year previous. If you try to find that, since you put 2021, it probably wouldn't find anything for you, because you're always filling it in for the previous year, all your information. So this is your annual survey. If you don't have access with the SAMS card, you can't enter patient-specific data like that, like we were just working through. So once you do get your SAMS access, and you can get in here, you remember you're going to go in and you got to set up your locations, your reporting plan. And then once you have you can always go back to January and enter your reporting plan. you know, you can go back, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. So once you get access, you go in and you do that, and then you can start reporting. And yeah, so you're going to want to do these things here when you get your card if you haven't been able to go in and finish the enrollment. Yes,
So
you can
can you
enter
enter?
annual
Oh.
report after March. Once you enter your annual report, so if you haven't had access, you're going to go in and actually you got to do your annual report. If you haven't got your Sam's Grid card, and then you can set up all your locations. You're going to want to do this NHSN enrollment too and finish that out if you haven't done that. Basically, but once you fill out that annual survey, you can go back and you can enter. So if you know, as I said, it's due in March. I haven't done it, and so now I'm gone, done it, then it'll let you go back and do the months that you weren't able to do your report plan for. Okay. I saw something about users. Did they need to show them how to put a new user in?
So it says another lady who retired had access and did this. So do I need to do enrollment as a new user?
Okay, it depends. Was she the facility administrator? Okay. Did
Yeah.
she reassign facility administrator before she left? Because that's really what should happen, is that the current facility administrator, before you leave, should be reassigning. Miranda, are you facility administrator?
Yes.
Can you go in to find your facility administrator?
Like to where my
Find-
users are
To
at,
find,
or,
yeah, to find you.
oh, like here.
Yeah, go find. Okay, so there's you. Scroll down further, then, okay. There's a, oh, what's it?
Like
I think
my-
maybe it's under facility. Go to facility. And facility info, try that one. Okay, scroll down, it'll tell you who your facility administrator is. Okay, so see, you're listed as facility administrator. Do you see over there in the action where it says reassign? The previous facility administrator needs to go there and click on reassign before they leave the facility, hopefully, while they still have access to this. And then they can put they would put the new person that's going to be the facility administrator name in there. So what I would say is that say they're leaving before a new person is hired that would basically replace, you could go in there, reassign it to say, you know, the IP should be the facility administrator. She could reassign it to the DON for temporary, then the DON can go back in and reassign. Okay, yeah, you got to have this right email account that she was signed up under for SAM's. We went into under facility, so go back and she'll want to see how they got here. Facility info, which then brings up all the information for the name of your facility, its address. It's got your CMS number, all that in there. And then it shows you what components you're signed up for. And then it's got the who are all these different functions. Who's the microbiology laboratory director or supervisor? So that's going to be whoever in the lab is that function. Your facility administrator is the person who has the most rights in here. So that's the person who signs the paperwork to set you up, usually. healthcare personnel primary contact, that's referring back to the healthcare personnel safety module. So it could be the same person, it could be a different person. Patient safety primary contact is, usually those a lot of times are your facility administrator. They're usually your primary contact. But say you do want someone different, like some places for some reason like to have one of their administrators as a facility administrator, but then the IP is doing all the entering, so then they get to be, they put them as the contact for patient safety and the healthcare personnel contact. If you click on click on outpatient procedure. For this facility type, but that's actually where you go in and how you add different components. So once you're set up, you would go in and you can put healthcare personnel safety as well if that wasn't clicked in there before. But as you see, it's not letting you do it because you're not registered as an outpatient facility. Will it let you do biovigilance? Yeah, so it's going to tell you, see, because what I'm telling you is that, yeah, see, so now here it wants you to put in who's the contact, and also you could add that component. That's where you add the component is what I'm trying to show you. So if there's something like if you just signed up for patient safety, but you need to add the healthcare personnel to report influenza vaccination, that's where you would add it is under facility as well. So cancel out of that because you probably don't want that. So if the facility administrator has not reassigned it before they left, I believe the only way you can get that facility administrator reassigned now is to email NHSN and tell them you need to change your facility administrator. Because the only person that can change the facility administrator is the facility administrator. You can add people as users. So, and assign them the rights. So if you go up there to users, and again, this is the facility administrator who can add a user too. So it's the facility administrator that has the most powers and the most rights in here. So you would put a user ID, which can be whatever you decide you want to use, their name, their first name, whatever. But if you see where it says there's an email address you have to put in here, there, that email address has to match whatever you register under SAMS for. Otherwise, you will not be able to get in and do what you need to do, because all your rights and everything for SAMS and for this are tied together, and the email addresses have to match because that email address is your user ID. And that's how they know what rights you have, what components you can use. So if that's wrong, I think you can go back in and change that email address, but that would be the facility administrator who needs to go in and change that. Other questions?
I don't see any new ones.
Okay.
Did we get everything answered? Did I miss anything?
So basically, when the facility administrator is reassigned for that same organization, they can then go in and report their March and April data. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You can always go back. You can go back a year and report data if you want to. And enter your plan for last year or whatever you want to do. only thing that affects is if you're a PPS hospital and you go back in and put data in after the CMS deadline. NHSN has already reported it to CMS. It's not going to change the data that CMS gets. It will change the data, like when you run your analysis and all in NHSN. NHSN would like you to do that if there's a change, though, so it keeps their data accurate. But unfortunately, and you guys don't have that deadline because you don't have CMS reporting requirements. I don't know with the cohort and the collaborative if you have deadlines like that, Janet, for the data to be in there and to.
Well, I mean, they run an NHSN report monthly at the first of the month, but if you go in and update your data, then the next time they pull it, it'll pull that data in. I mean, the goal is 45 days after the end of month, but they will rewrite that data each time they pull your NHSN data. So if you go in and make an update or add data, then that will come across.
Okay, so that, you know, it's better for you to go in and change that data then to make it accurate. And it's, yeah, and even if you had a CMS reporting requirement, they do want you to go in and change your data so it keeps it accurate within the NHSN and your analysis.
Margaret, there is a question about someone has SAM's access for their acute care. Would they need different access for the facility, same facility, but that has long-term care?
They would need to be assigned as a user under the long-term care module. So whoever assigned them the user as the acute care just needs to go in and add the long-term care, go under long-term care and add user and put them in.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically both of these would be checked here. You would, you know, but the long-term care facility, the thing is, it is under a different, it's going to be under a different CMS number. It's considered a different facility entity. So when you go up to the NHSN home, on this left-hand side at the top, click NHSN home. Oops, so go to reporting then. Okay, you see this patient safety. If there's a long-term care, then when you click down on that, long-term care should come up because that would be the component that you would be reporting in. And then the one below it would have the long-term care facility name there and then submit. So instead of just the county hospital, this patient safety would be, there would be a long-term care would be listed as well. If you're, you know, your person has, is the facility administrator for both, she will see that. She will select the facility, the long-term care facility, and hit the submit button. And then once she's into that facility and that component, she would go to user and add you as a user for the long-term care. Again, making sure that she uses the same email address that you already have SAM's access to. You will probably get another email from SAM saying, you know, that you've been added as a user. You can ignore that email because you already have your SAM's grid card. But that's how she would go add you to the long-term care so that you could start reporting into long-term care as well as patient safety for your acute care. Does that make sense?
Thank you,
All
Margaret.
right, well, we are at 1 o'clock. I know everybody has busy schedules. If you guys think of questions that you didn't get answered or need some clarification, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Janet or directly to Margaret. The recording will go on the website soon. Well, actually, we're going to wait to put them all on the website when the whole Learning Collaborative is done, but we will send out links to these shortly as we get them completed. Otherwise, I think we will wrap up for today. Again, if you have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and we will see you next week on the third installment of the Learning Collaborative. So thanks everybody for joining us. Reach out if you need anything. And thank you, Margaret and Miranda, for working hard with us today, and we will go from there. Thanks, everybody.